a renowned judge, was about to preside over the case of a hard-working young mother who was accompanied by her starving daughter. He knew the woman had broken the law, but after hearing her reasons, he had to make an important decision. The entire courtroom was shocked by what this judge did. In the southern part of the country, a young mother named Ely walked toward the courthouse, holding tightly to the hand of her 6-year-old daughter Mariana. At first glance, the hearing didn't seem serious. It was for a parking violation, and the fine was only $175. But for Ely, this amount was significant enough to leave her seriously worried. Nervously entering the courtroom, Ely scanned the faces of the audience and the court staff. There was a pleading look in her eyes. Mariana, her daughter, was unaware of the gravity of the situation around the courtroom, with wide-eyed innocence, having no idea of the potential impact this day could have on her and her mother's finances. Ely sat quietly with her head bowed. She had practiced her plea and clung to a shred of hope, praying that her circumstances would sway the judgment in her favor. She was a single mother raising her daughter alone. She worked as a waitress, which meant long hours for meager pay and daily struggles to provide for Mariana. On the day of the incident, she made a quick stop to get medicine for her daughter, parking at a curb with the intention of running into the pharmacy, grabbing the package and leaving quickly. However, she ended up with a ticket and was once again on the brink of poverty. Judge Thomas Miller entered the courtroom and took his seat. He immediately noticed the young mother and daughter. Judge Miller smiled at the little girl. He loved having children in the courtroom, as they always lightened the somber atmosphere. When the case was called, Ely stepped forward. Her heart raced, but she knew she had to stay calm. Mariana, her daughter, curiously looked around, not fully grasping the seriousness of the situation. Ely took a deep breath, straightened up, and spoke in a firm voice, though the underlying stress was unmistakable. "Good morning, Your Honor." Ely began with a slight tremor in her voice. "I'm here because of a parking ticket I received. It was a mistake, and I'd like to explain what happened." Judge Miller looked at her with attentive and compassionate eyes. "Please go on," he said in a gentle voice, encouraging her to speak. That day, Ely continued, "I had just finished my shift at the first of my 3 daily jobs. I work as a waitress, and it was an especially long shift. When I left, I was exhausted, but I knew I needed to get medicine for my daughter Mariana, who was sick. I had only a few minutes before I had to head to my next job, so I quickly parked at a curb in front of the pharmacy." She paused, trying to control the tears that threatened to well up. "I knew it wasn't allowed to park there, but I had no choice. Mariana urgently needed the medicine, and I couldn't waste time looking for another place to park. I ran into the pharmacy as quickly as I could, grabbed the medicine, and returned to the car. That's when I found the ticket on the windshield." Judge Miller listened intently, his eyes softening as Ely spoke. "I understand," he said, nodding. "You mentioned that you have 3 daily jobs. Can you tell us a bit more about that?" "Yes, sir," Ely replied. "Besides working as a waitress, I also clean houses in the afternoon, and at night I work at a convenience store. I do this to support my daughter. It's tough, but I do whatever it takes to make sure Mariana has what she needs." The mother chose her words carefully, and wanting to expose all her hardships. The courtroom was silent, everyone listening intently to E's story. Judge Miller glanced at Mariana, who sat quietly holding a worn-out rag doll. He listened carefully, as he always did, with his eyes occasionally moving from the mother to the daughter. He recognized the mother's struggles and respected the way she faced them. He also acknowledged the delicate balance she was desperately trying to maintain. Ely wanted to admit her mistake and let the law take its course, but she couldn't afford the fine. On the other hand, she tried to shield her child from the harsh realities of their life. "And how is your daughter now?" the judge asked with genuine concern in his voice. "She's better thanks to the medicine," Ely said with a small smile of relief. "But I'm still worried about the future. This $175 fine is a significant amount for us, and I'm struggling to find a way to pay it." Judge Miller took a deep breath contemplating the situation. He looked again at Mariana, who now watched the judge. With a look of curiosity and innocence, he knew that the decision he made at that moment would greatly impact the lives of this mother and daughter. Ma'am, Judge Miller began, with his deep, compassionate voice, I understand you are in a difficult situation, but the law is the law, and parking in a prohibited area results in fines. However, I see there are extenuating circumstances. He really felt a lump in her throat. She didn't know what to expect, but she was prepared for the worst. The judge then turned his attention to Mariana, who was observing everything with childlike curiosity. Mariana, would you like to come here and help me with this? The judge's voice was warm. Grandfather's Mariana hesitated, but was curious. She looked at her mother for approval, received a nod, and walked towards Judge Miller. He gave her a stool, so she could look him in the eyes. Once settled, he asked, how was your day? The judge's gentle voice invited the girl to trust him. She smiled slightly and said, it was good. Mariana, do you know why your mother is here today? The judge asked. Yes, she replied chilly. Because of a parking ticket. That's right, said the judge with a smile. Now I have some options about what to do with this ticket. I could make your mom pay the full amount, or maybe a part of it, or perhaps you might have a better idea. What do you think we should do? Mariana furrowed her brow, feeling the weight of the decision on her young shoulders. She looked at her mother, Judge Miller, and the courtroom full of people waiting to hear her response. After a few moments of deep reflection, she finally turned to Judge Miller with a determined expression. I think, Mariana began, her voice clear and confident, that my mom should only pay half the amount. Judge Miller looked at the girl with a mixture of surprise and admiration. Half the amount, he repeated, a gentle smile forming on his lips. Yes, Mariana replied, nodding. My mom didn't do it on purpose. She was just trying to take care of me. But I understand that laws exist to look after everyone, and those who break them, even unintentionally, need to pay a price. In some cases. The courtroom was silent for a moment. Then a wave of laughter and murmurs of approval swept through the room. Judge Miller smiled broadly, impressed by the girl's wisdom and compassion. Everyone recognized the depth of Mariana's perspective on justice and responsibility, especially considering her young age. The previously tense and suffocating atmosphere now felt lighter, almost cheerful. Judge Miller smiled, with his eyes an expression of pride and respect on his face. He nodded solemnly at Mariana and said, Mariana, you are very wise for your age. Your decision shows understanding and justice. I accept your suggestion. Your mother will only pay half the fine. He leaned forward slightly and added, you played a very important role in today's proceedings, and for that I thank you. Ely felt tears of relief streaming down her face. She looked at Mariana, proud and emotional as her daughter's courage. Judge Miller, seeing the emotion on E's face, paused before continuing. Mariana smiled shyly at the praise. Judge Miller continued, I also want to tell you that you are as wise as you are beautiful. I'm sure you have a great future ahead of you. Then, with a twinkle in his eye, Judge Miller did something unexpected. He leaned forward, looked directly at Mariana, and said in a warm and friendly tone, Mariana, are you hungry? Have you eaten today? The question caught everyone in the courtroom by surprise, generating a murmur of curiosity among those present. But to Mariana it seems the most natural thing in the world. She looked at the judge, and with the same sincerity she had shown before, replied, I am hungry, yes, she said, nodding. I haven't eaten today. Judge Miller smiled, understanding the simplicity and sincerity of the child. He turned to E and saw the sigh of relief she let out upon hearing her daughter's response. Turning back to Mariana, he said, okay, Mariana, he began, still with twinkle in his eyes, what if I told you that I would waive the fine completely if your mother made just one promise? Mariana furrowed her brow, not entirely sure what was happening. The promise of resolving the situation without any additional cost seemed like a tremendous relief. She looked at her mother, who emotionally questioned the judge. "What promise, Mariana?" asked curious Judge Miller. Smiled kindly and replied, "If your mother promises to take you out for breakfast today, I would waive the fine." Mariana looked at her mother with wide eyes of surprise, and Joy Ely, with tears of gratitude in her eyes, quickly nodded. "I promise," said Ely, her voice choked with emotion. "I promised to take her out for breakfast." At that moment, people in the courtroom were uncertain whether to smile or cry. Everyone was enchanted by Judge Miller's proposal, and at the same time impressed by the fair and easy way he applied the law. After all, the law was there to protect people, not to harm them. The judge's empathy and kindness touched the hearts of everyone present. Mariana's mother was visibly moved by the situation. A few hours earlier, attending court seemed like an insurmountable mountain. She had convinced herself that she would have to pay the fine and had no idea where she would find the money. But now her daughter had the opportunity to sit on a real judge's bench and even make an important decision. Judge Miller nodded solemnly at Mariana. "I think you made a wise choice, Mariana," he said. "You showed us how important kindness and understanding are. Your words and example were a lesson for everyone present, showing that there is something deeply moral about the place of compassion in the justice system." "Very well, then, case dismissed, fine waived, and Mariana, enjoy your breakfast." Ely and Mariana thanked Judge Miller profusely before leaving the courtroom hand in hand. Mariana, radiant with happiness, looked at her mother as the court was adjourned. They weren't just leaving behind a legal dispute, but also carrying with them a significant life lesson. A simple act of judicial kindness had changed the way they thought about law enforcement. In the process, Judge Miller created a powerful advocate of his vision of the law. Sometimes the spirit of the law is more important than the letter of the law. At breakfast, Ely and Mariana sat in a small local diner. For Ely, the meal felt like a luxury she could no longer ignore. She ordered pancakes and orange juice for Mariana, while she opted for coffee and toast. "Mom, the judge was really nice, wasn't he?" asked Mariana, while pouring syrup on her pancakes. "Yes, sweetheart, he was," Ely replied, smiling. "He gave us a great lesson today. We should always try to be fair and kind." "Do you think he did it because I was with him?" asked Mariana with curiosity. "Oh, but you," said Ely, "but I think he also saw that we were going through a tough time and wanted to help." Sometimes people do good things simply because they know it's the right thing to do. As they ate, Ely thought about how that small act of kindness had lifted so much of her burden. She knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but at that moment she felt a renewed hope. She also knew she wanted to teach Mariana to be compassionate and fair, just as Judge Miller had shown. Later that day, Ely returned to the courthouse with a small box of sweets that Mariana had carefully chosen. The box was decorated with colorful ribbons and had an air of simplicity and sincerity. Upon entering the courthouse again, she felt a bit nervous, but determined to express her gratitude, she approached a court officer, a tall man with a friendly expression, who recognized her. "Good afternoon," Ely said, holding the box of sweets with both hands. "I would like to deliver this to Judge Miller." The court officer smiled and took the box delicately. "Is this for Judge Miller?" "Yes," Ely replied. "My daughter Mariana picked out these sweets. We wanted to thank Judge Miller for the compassion and lesson he gave us today." The officer nodded, sensing the sincerity in E's words. "That's very kind of you." He will be touched by the gesture." Ely then handed the officer a small note she had written from the heart. "Here is a thank you note. I want him to know how much his kindness meant to us." The officer opened the note and took a quick look. He could see that the words were filled with emotion and gratitude. He smiled again and said, "I'll make sure Judge Miller receives this." Ely thanked him and began to walk away, but then stopped and turned back to the officer. "Please tell him that he made a huge difference in our lives today, just financially, but in the way he treated my daughter. He gave us a lesson in humanity that we will never forget." The officer nodded understandingly. "We'll tell him, ma'am. Have a good day." Ely left the courthouse feeling lighter, knowing she had done what she could to show her gratitude. Mariana, who had been waiting outside, ran up to her mom. "Did he like the sweets?" Mariana asked, her eyes shining with curiosity. "I think so, sweetheart," Ely replied with a smile. The officer said he would deliver everything to Judge Miller. "I'm sure he will be very happy. I'm glad he knows how much he helped us," said Mariana, holding her mother's hand. Later that day, the courthouse was beginning to empty out. Judge Miller was in his office reviewing some documents when there was a soft knock on the door. "Coming," he said, looking up from his papers. The court officer entered carrying this small decorated box of sweets, and the note Ely had left Judge Miller. "A woman and her daughter were here earlier and left this for you," said the officer, handing the box and the note to the judge. Judge Miller smiled at the sight of the sweets and took the note. He opened the envelope and began to read aloud. "Dear Judge Miller, I don't have enough words to express my gratitude for what you did for me and my daughter today. Act of kindness not only eased our financial burden, but also taught us a valuable lesson about justice and compassion, Mariana. And I will never forget this. With gratitude." Ely and Mariana, as he read, Judge Miller's smile grew wider, and his eyes sparkled with emotion. He placed the note on the desk carefully, as if it were a precious treasure. "This is the kind of thing that makes it all worthwhile," he said, looking at the officer with a satisfied and humble expression. "Knowing I made a difference in someone's life, especially a child's, is the greatest reward I can receive." The officer smiled and nodded. "It was a very beautiful gesture, sir. I think everyone in the court was touched by what happened today." Judge Miller picked up one of the sweets from the box and looked at it thoughtfully. "Sometimes we forget that justice is not just about following the laws, but also about understanding people and their circumstances." Ely and Mariana's story quickly spread throughout the court, becoming an example of the profound impact that empathy and understanding can have. Judge Miller continued to be a respected and admired figure, known only for his fair application of the law, but also for his compassionate heart. Years later, when Mariana was about to graduate from high school, she decided to send another letter to Judge Miller saying that thanks to him, she was going to college, and that one day she would become a great woman to show that his act could change lives. The young woman kept Miller updated on her achievements, giving him great pride as he read her letters, knowing he had done a good job. And so, the kindness of one day turned into days of contentment and joy because of his act and its reward. But what would come years later would truly give meaning to his life. Many years later, now well advanced in age, Judge Miller unfortunately discovered he had cancer, and his life changed drastically. Judge Thomas Miller, known for his integrity and compassion, found himself facing a personal and exhausting battle against cancer. The diagnosis was a heavy blow for him and his wife Helena, who had always been his constant and loving support during treatment. Thomas found himself weakened by the effects of chemotherapy. He spent hours in the hospital, and though his body was frail, his mind often wandered through memories of the cases he had judged and the lives he had impacted. Each recollection was a comfort amidst the pain. And remember, Ely and Mariana, Thomas said one day, his voice low and tired, that case seemed small, but it was so significant. "I see the faces of these people, and it gives me a sense of accomplishment." Helena, sitting by his side, held his hand tenderly. She knew how important these memories were to him and tried to offer all the support possible. "You did so much good for so many people," Helena responded with an encouraging tone. "Every case, every decision made a real difference, and you can still continue to do so in one way or another." Despite his desire to return to the court, Thomas was aware of his physical limitations. He missed the judicial environment, the place where he felt he made a real difference in his life. I miss the court, he confessed with a sigh, the feeling of being there, making decisions that impact lives, seeing justice being served. It's where I always felt most alive. Helena looked at him with a mix of concern and hope. I know, my love, and I believe you will return every day. You are getting stronger, and that's because you have fought so courageously. I am here to support you every step of the way during this difficult period. Their adult children traveled from different states and even other countries to be by his side. Their presence brought additional comfort to Thomas and Helena. Dad, we're here for you, said David, the eldest son, as he entered the hospital room. We made a long trip, but seeing you well is the most important thing. It's good to have you all here, Thomas replied, his face lit up with a weak smile. Your presence makes all the difference. Lavra, the middle daughter, held her father's hand tenderly. Remember all the times you helped us and gave us advice. Now it's our turn to be here for you, she said, her voice choked with emotion. The youngest, Ben, who lived abroad, also expressed his love and support. Distance doesn't lessen how much I love and admire you, Dad, Ben affirmed. I'll stay here as long as it takes. Every example Thomas set, every truth and empathy was reflected in his children. Each one of them learned from their father the true value of justice, and seeing them, their good people following in his footsteps, brought him peace and joy. Helena strove to maintain a welcoming and positive environment for the whole family. She talked about the future and the hope that Thomas could one day return to the court, a place he deeply loved. Let's plan for the day you return to the courts, Helena suggested, trying to brighten the horizon with a positive vision. We can imagine how it will be. Your colleagues will welcome you back with joy, and you'll do what you do best. I want to believe that, Thomas responded, the glimmer of hope still present in his eyes. Imagining the day I can return gives me strength to keep fighting. At night, when the children were with Helena, she and Thomas talked about the future and the dreams they still had. Remember that little cabin we always wanted to rent in the mountains? Helena asked, her voice soft and hopeful. Yes, Thomas replied with a weak smile. I still dream of that one day. I hope we can go there, just the two of us. I hope so too, Helena said, squeezing his hand. Let's hold on to these hopes and dreams. They are what keep us strong. Though Thomas had achieved many dreams, reached all his life goals, and helped many people, he hadn't been able to enjoy certain simple pleasures because of his work and duty. A night in the cabin in the mountains that he and Helena always planned, but never managed to go to. Thomas's battle with cancer brought a new perspective on life and the value of small moments. Every conversation, every gesture of affection became a reminder of the deep and lasting love between him and Helena. Their children, now gathered by their side, were a testament to the impact Thomas had on their lives and the love that continued to nurture even amidst adversity. As the cancer progressed, Thomas Miller's hope seemed to be waning. Helena and the family were faced with news brought by their youngest son of a new experimental treatment offered by a young doctor with an impressive background. Their youngest son, Ben, said, trust Dad. Despite her young age, the doctor is recognized for her exceptional results and innovation in the field of oncology. We have nothing to lose. It's a hope. He spoke. She convinced Thomas Ben was the son most affected by his father's illness and sought any possibility of a cure, no matter how small. After much consideration, Helena and Thomas decided to schedule a consultation with the doctor, and their youngest son took care of everything. Expectations were high, mixed with palpable nervousness. When the day arrived and they reached the office, they found a modern and welcoming environment that reflected the innovative and careful approach of the much-talked-about doctor. However, they didn't imagine how surprising what was about to happen would be when the office door opened. Thomas and Helena were approached by a young woman who walked up to them. It was Mariana, and now an adult, with an air of professionalism and competence. Thomas looked at her with wide eyes, mix of recognition and joy crossing his face. Mariana, is it you? Thomas asked, his voice choked with emotion. Mariana smiled with a gleam of recognition in her eyes, her demeanor serene and confident. "Yes, Mr. Thomas," Mariana replied, her voice filled with gratitude and affection. "It's me. I became a doctor, and it's an honor to be able to help you." Now Helena beside Thomas was visibly moved. This is incredible," Helena said with tears in her eyes. "You were the girl Thomas helped in court. Seeing you now as a doctor is a wonderful testament to how life can take unexpected turns." Mariana approached Thomas, her gaze full of empathy. "I remember when you helped me and the impact it had on my life and my mother's. I can't express how grateful I am for everything you did for us. Now, being able to help you is something very special to me." Thomas, with a voice full of emotion, responded, "Seeing you now as a doctor is one of the greatest gifts I could imagine, even if the treatment doesn't bring the results we hoped for. Knowing that you are here making a difference already gives me enormous peace." Mariana smiled, touched by Thomas's sincerity. "I'll do my best to help you. I have great respect and admiration for you and how you impacted my life. I'll work with all my dedication to provide the best possible treatment." As Mariana explained the details of the treatment and the next steps, Thomas felt a deep sense of fulfillment and serenity regardless of what the future held. The fact that he had helped shape Mariana's life and was now being cared for by her gave him a sense of completeness and purpose. The visit to the office became a moment of reconnection and gratitude. Thomas and Helena's journey was far from easy, but the encounter with Mariana brought new light and hope for Thomas. Seeing the girl he helped now caring for him, the doctor, was proof that his life had a positive and significant impact, bringing a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. As the consultation ended, Helena and Thomas left the office with hearts full of gratitude and renewed hope. Mariana's presence with her professionalism and dedication offered a new perspective on Thomas's life and struggle, reinforcing the belief that even in the most challenging moments, life can surprise with beauty and meaning. Thomas Miller continued his treatment journey with a newfound sense of hope and purpose. Mariana, now a highly respected physician, only took on the responsibility of Thomas's treatment, but also became a constant and beloved presence in the Miller family's life. Her dedication and compassion were evident in every aspect of the care she provided. Mariana was more than an exceptional doctor. She also became a friend and a source of strength for Thomas and his family. She spent time with them, sharing comforting conversations and moments of lightness. Her presence was a constant reminder of the strength and faith she had experienced herself and that had helped shape her life. "How are you feeling today?" Mariana would ask with a gentle smile as she adjusted Thomas's treatment and checked his vital signs. "Better. That you're here," Thomas would reply, gratitude clear in his voice. "Your presence is a great comfort to me." Mariana was more than just a doctor. She had become part of the family. During visits and consultations, the Miller home was filled with a sense of familiarity and affection. Mariana shared stories of her own life and experiences, creating a deep connection with everyone. She also shared stories about her mother Ely, who could now rest thanks to her financial support, and how Ely never forgot that day in court. Mariana accompanied Thomas to his treatment sessions, helped Helena with practical advice, and engaged in family activities, creating an environment of support and love in the most challenging moments. When Thomas's illness seemed to weigh heavily on him, Mariana's strength and optimism provided crucial relief. She had a special way of approaching each situation with a blend of professionalism and empathy that made Thomas feel valued and understood. "I'll always remember your words and how you helped me face these tough times," Thomas said during one of his deep conversations. With Mariana are a true source of inspiration and courage for me. Mariana, with her eyes shining with emotion, replied, "It's an honor for me to be here with you. The impact you had on my life when I was a girl was profound, and now having the opportunity to give back in some way is extremely meaningful." As the days went by, Thomas experienced a deep inner peace. He was certain that he had lived a full and meaningful life. Anna's presence with her generous spirit and medical skill contributed to this sense of completeness. Helena and the children, equally touched by Anna's presence, often expressed their gratitude. Anna, you brought light into our lives during such a difficult time, Helena said, as she prepared a meal for the family. We couldn't be more grateful for everything you've done and continue to do with Thomas Miller's treatment progressing under Anna's attentive and dedicated care. The family began to look for ways to create special and meaningful moments together. Anna, always mindful of Thomas's emotional and physical needs, had an idea that could bring a bit of joy and fulfillment to everyone. A trip to the cabin in the mountains, a place Thomas had always wanted to visit with Helena, that never could due to his demanding work schedule, was thinking. Anna said during a consultation, looking directly at Thomas and Helena, maybe we should plan a weekend at that cabin in the mountains. You mentioned it would be a great opportunity for everyone to spend time together. And with the proper medical care, I believe we can do it safely. Thomas looked at Helena, his eyes sparkling with a mix of surprise and joy. I've always wanted to go there with you, Helena, but we never had the time, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. Anna, do you really think it's possible? Anna smiled, full of confidence and determination. With the right planning and all the necessary medical care, yes, it's totally possible. I'll be with you to make sure everything goes smoothly. I think it would be a great break for everyone and a special time for you both. Thomas's children, hearing the idea, were equally excited. They were willing to do whatever it took to make that weekend unforgettable for their father and the whole family. And so, with much preparation and enthusiasm, the trip to the cabin was organized. The mountain cabin was an isolated and peaceful place surrounded by nature, offering the tranquility and serenity Thomas had always dreamed of sharing with Helena. When they arrived, the view of the mountains and the fresh air brought a breath of life and renewal to everyone. Anna, with her meticulous care, made sure that Thomas was comfortable and well looked after throughout the trip. She monitored his vital signs, administered medications, and was always ready for any need. How are you feeling, Thomas? Anna asked, adjusting Thomas's pillow in his wheelchair, with a spectacular mountain view in the background. I've never felt better, Anna, Thomas replied with a sincere smile. This place is even more beautiful than I imagined, and being here with all of you are a real gift. The days at the cabin were filled with laughter, stories, and moments of togetherness that the family would never forget. They took light hikes around the cabin, enjoyed meals together outdoors, and spent evenings around the fireplace sharing memories and making new ones. Dad, remember the time we went fishing and you fell into the lake? One of the children asked, laughing. Of course I remember, Thomas responded, laughing as well. And you never let me forget it, did you? Helena, watching the scene, felt a deep gratitude for this precious time together. She knew these moments were priceless, and that Mariana's presence had made it all possible. Mariana, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done for us, Helena said, as they prepared a meal together in the cabin's kitchen. Brought new hope and happiness into our lives. Mariana, humble as ever, responded with a smile. It's been a privilege to be here with you and see how much this means to everyone. Happy to have helped create these special memories. The weekend passed quickly, but every moment was enjoyed to the fullest. Even with the underlying sadness of Thomas's illness, the joy and love they shared were palpable and transformative. On the last day, as the sun set over the mountains, Thomas looked at Helena, Mariana, and his children, feeling a deep peace. This has been the best weekend of my life, he said with tears in his eyes. Thank you for making this happen. Mariana held Thomas's hand, feeling equally emotional. It's been a pleasure, Thomas. You deserve all the happiness we can give. With hearts full of gratitude and unforgettable memories, the family returned home. That those days at the cabin would be remembered forever as one of the most precious times in their lives, and Mariana, always by Thomas's side, continued to be a symbol of strength and faith in humanity, a constant presence bringing comfort and hope to all. Thomas's final days were filled with a sense of satisfaction and peace. He knew he had lived a good life and left a legacy of kindness and positive impact. Mary Anna's constant presence, a living symbol of good deeds and human connections, provided Thomas with a profound sense of fulfillment. At the end of his journey, Thomas faced his final days with the certainty that he had lived fully. His life was marked by love, compassion, and a lasting impact on those around him. Mary Anna, with her dedication and constant presence, helped make those final moments comfortable and full of meaning. When the time came to say goodbye, Thomas did so with a calm heart and a peaceful soul. He had contributed to a better world, and that his legacy would continue through the lives he touched. Mary Anna, Helena, and Thomas's family were by his side, sharing the love and gratitude they had for him, and celebrating a life well lived and deeply meaningful. So the eternal Judge Miller left this world with the certainty that his impact was profound and true, living his final days with the joy and peace that can only come from a life full of lived and well loved. What impact would it have on the world if all judges were like this? How do you think things would be today? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this touching story, please give this video a like and share it with your friends. This other video appearing on your screen now, also very moving and will surely touch you as well. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates, and see you in the next video.